Montu's coming on now.
Okay. Welcome to Jules for Life podcast. As you know, I'm your host, Azandi of Righteous Jules, and you're tuned in to the Vantage Point. We like to say every week what the Vantage Point is for our new listeners. We hope and pray to inspire Nubians all across the globe to look at the world and look at their lives from a different vantage point, a vantage point that propels them towards awakening and Black liberation through action. So we bring on different speakers, different scholars, philosophers, theologians, doctors, professionals, and they give us these tools that we can use in our everyday life, in our everyday fight against racism, white supremacy. So we have with us obviously a big gang today. I'm overwhelmed by the masculinity today. So we are going to first thank you all for being here. Um, Everyone here has been on the Vantage Point before, so I know you guys are all ready to go. The topic of today is African Holocaust Month, the endangered Black male, the endangered Black man. So this topic, it it's centered around the man. Last week, ladies, we had our champs, so now we got to give them their turn and go into this topic because it's very relevant today. BB Frances Cress Wilson, she speaks about how the Black male is a threat to white genetic survival. She speaks about how we are under constant attack, which we see in our everyday lives. So, looking at all these fathers on the screen, I kind of just want to start off by speaking to you as a dad, as a father. If we can go around and just let the listeners know, how does it feel as a male, not for only your life to be endangered, but your children as they go out every day? What are some of the thoughts that enter your mind? What are some of the worries, some of the concerns that you have in real time? Um, Dr. Tucker, we'll start with you, please.
Okay. Good evening. Thanks for having me on the show. Some of the things that constantly bother me would be one thing would be the police brutality. So I try to explain to my kids, if they are ever stopped or approached by authorities, to never become the aggressor, because a lot of times officers they say certain things to provoke you, and once provoked they always say stop resisting when the person is not really resisting.
Mm-hmm.
So I always let my kids know, and even friends of my kids, that these are some things that could possibly happen, and the proper, I wouldn't even say the proper way, because if everything was happening the way that it should be, they wouldn't even be getting harassed in the first place. So I give them ways to kind of maintain their calmness, even though they may not have even done anything and are being provoked in a way to for them to become aggressive. Some of the other things I do, I talk to them constantly. I ask them what's going on at school, what's going on at work, and I give them certain things to read, and I try to be a good example for them. When they see me interacting with people, I try to interact in a way that I would want them to interact with people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I try to instill values and morals, and overall just be a living example of what I want them to be and how I want them to react in certain situations.
Okay. Okay. Now, and then I'm only going. I see you guys on my screen. Now, I always think about your daughters. Do you have a son?
No, I
Yes.
have two daughters. No, oh, sorry.
Okay, good.
Sorry. I
It's
kind of
okay.
lost you.
It's still important. It's still important. We're going to come back to you. I want to go to Kahumantu, Namastu. Um, Now, I want to ask you yourself, as a father, and we're speaking specifically speaking about the Nubian male. Um, how old is your son? And I want to know, what is the difference between the aggression when you were raising your son compared to now, and some of the worries and concerns that you had or that you do still have.
My son, the youngest, is 28 now, right?
Okay.
The eldest is 46 or 44, something like that.
Wow.
But when they were younger, um, the eldest I didn't have that much worry about because he was in the church. And because he was in the church, he was brought up a certain way where he didn't run street. So he didn't have that problem. The other one, he was a bit of a rebel. So we had a little bit of worries with him. And it, like my brother, Dr. Tucker, said, and let me first say, Namaste, good evening, my apologies. Like Dr. Tucker said, the police is what you was worried about, but we're also worried about the gangs because I don't know how it is in the US, but over here we're looking at postcode. It's probably there as well. And if you're from a certain postcode and you're walking in the wrong areas, why are you here? So we had those sort of worries with the gangs and saying, well, they'd be forcing the youth to join the gangs. So that was part of the worries that you'd have as a father and son going out to school or walking the street. But other than that, you have to then speak to them and explain about things. But because again, he was brought up, and I within our doctrine, we constantly taught him. He wasn't influenced to the gangs, but he was still encouraged to run about. Like for instance, if you were in something and you see everybody else doing what you feel is fun, you're tempted to do fun. You know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
the fight was to let them or let him have fun without crossing over into that line. So
Okay.
that was a struggle. He rebelled a lot, right? But
Now,
later
Calhoun,
I realized a lot.
you're in England, right? So I just want to be clear with the audience here today. Now, are you saying that if you are involved in the only threat is if you're involved in the street, if you have to worry about gangs, but just being a decent Nubian black male where you are, where you're living, there's no direct threat?
Well, the police is going to stop you, but the police target. I'm not saying they're great, but if you dress a certain way, if you're moving with certain people, they'll pick on you. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, for instance, my eldest, they never troubled him. Like I said, he was in the church. He went to school. He came home. He wasn't in the walking around street late at night in the evening. So he was really out of their way. Whereas the other one he was really running up and down having fun. So now they'll call you because of who you're mixing with.
Okay.
Do you understand? So in that, I'm not saying they didn't trouble him or wouldn't trouble you. They'll still trouble you, but they won't. They'll talk to you and think, okay, leave this one alone.
Okay.
Like now, the difference you asked when I was on the street, because I was a bit rebellious and I was a bit sort of
troublemaker.
not quite a troublemaker, but I got into certain I got into certain wrongdoings. So I was constantly getting harassed on the road. And
Okay.
the difference is because our police don't carry guns here, we could fight them. So
They don't carry guns.
No, they don't carry.
Mm.
Now they may carry hidden, but when I was a youth, they didn't carry guns at all. So we could get in fights with them. And we look forward to doing that.
Yes.
As a young man, you look forward
Yes.
to you'd beat up a police. You say, yeah, I beat up a police. And it was something that we look forward to doing. And yeah, they'd outnumber you in the end, but we'd give it a good fight. I remember getting arrested once, and my father came and said, "Oh, how could you fight 13 policemen?" I said, "Was it 13? I didn't know the number. I was just fighting." That's what we did. So it's different now. Now, some of them do carry guns, and they'll take you out because there's people dying. But when I was a young man, that wasn't there. So you had that opportunity.
Okay. That's interesting. I want to come back to that. That's very interesting. Thank you, Cole. He's out here beating up cops. That's what I like. All right. Now to you, Cole Mansu, Dr. Cleveland is. Can you give us your experience? Because you're in Bahamas. So what does that look like for you?
Well, namaste to everybody, the viewers and the panelists alike. Thank you for having me on the show. It's really no major difference between what is taking place in the Bahamas versus UK versus United States, Trinidad, Jamaica. You may have, differences with regard to whether you live in the country versus the city. There's some differences there. But ultimately, as I tend to raise my children like my father raised me. My mother was there too, obviously, but in terms of how he operated, he focused more. I didn't notice as a child, right? But he focused on the environment. He controlled the environment that I was in such a way that the potential of anything totally crazy happening was limited. Didn't mean it couldn't happen, but the same thing with I have four sons, one daughter, right? Mm-hmm. You can't control every interaction. You can't control moment to moment, but if you keep them in environments where the probability for the volatile behavior, the aggression, the craziness, if you can keep them in an environment where that is at least limited, then the potential for those things happening is limited. Mm-hmm. And so that is where the Kanisa, the Holy Coptic Church, comes in, because we keep there's always things going on with the church that allows for us to keep the children busy. There's always things going on with the family that allows the children to stay occupied in things that are going to keep them not just away from the craziness, but put them in a position to actually achieve, mm-hmm. to actually learn, to actually be aware of what they're going to be up against as a child, and even growing up into young adults and ultimately adults. And so, as far as the difference is concerned, a gunshot in the Bahamas, it don't come with a Bahamian dialect. Right. It's a gunshot. A knife wound don't come with a Bahamian dialect. It's the same knife in the UK, same knife in the. Yeah. You understand? So, we try to focus on the environment. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, Reverend Dr. AJ Farmer, he's showing us an image of a Black man sitting on the throne. He has the camera, low, and we're, looking up at him. So if you can just join us for a second, so we can ask you a question.
Come down off that throne for a minute.
That's what we're doing. Okay.
So, I want to ask you, because you have, he left us. Okay.
I'm still here.
That's better. There we go. Welcome.
I wanted to
So,
come down to be with everyone.
yes,
Yeah.
we appreciate it. We are truly grateful. So with you having a newborn, or not so new, I guess a year in, you may have a different perspective. What do you see hope? What's your experience compared to
Well,
the other children that you
a
raised?
little different because years ago, what I decided years ago was to adopt 7 white babies, right? And I would have these white babies. What the hell, right? Right? Adopt 7 white boys and then just raise them, and I wouldn't have to worry and just tell them the police, got their back and they protect and serve, and everything would be wonderful. That just the adoption papers didn't go through, so instead we ended up having these 7 black boys. And like my fellow panelists and brothers, as they've said thus far, we all had the same understanding. We put them in sports, we put them in chess, we tried to keep them, as Calhoun Uncle said, in certain busy, and that works to a certain age. And then before you knew it, we blinked and everybody was over 14, 18, 22, 25, 27. And now we had grown men that we could no longer shelter and keep inside, or no longer keep at the sport event, or no longer keep at the chess or tennis or golf or track and field, whatever it was. You could no longer keep them there.
Mhm.
But what we found is as we were raising them, or as you and I are raising them, you and I as men, as black men, as women, we have to put something into the society. I'm a firm believer in you get what you put in. So if all I put into were my sons and I didn't focus on other people's sons and other people's daughters, well, inevitably my sons and daughters have to go out here and meet other people's sons and daughters. So if
Mhm.
I don't want my sons and daughters, if we don't want our children involved with the wrong type of people, then we have to shape those potentially wrong type of people before they become the wrong type of people.
Mhm.
We practice a thing called choosing our children's friends. I know that Dr. Tuck, I know he's coached track and field and football. I know Kahun Anku Sarah, he's coached swimming. I know Elder Owen has been mentoring. I know Kahun Muntu has mentored and participated in coaching. So by coaching your children's fellow athletes, you end up selecting their friends. Whenever we would do a draft for baseball or track or softball or basketball. When you were recruiting or drafting at the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, all the way up through high school, what I found was it gave me an opportunity when I was trying to recruit a player or draft a player or pick up a player to meet their parents. And we learned to draft or recruit the parent more than the child. Because, see, if I know the parents, a cusser, screamer, throwing fruit and vegetables and drinks at the referee, I know the mentality of this child. I don't care how
Right.
good they can throw the football or how fast they can run. I'm not putting this child on my team because
Mhm.
this child now has access to my child. Instead, I would look for those children who I could coach, who were coachable. And I knew they were coachable because I could talk to the parents, and the parents were of the mentality where you could talk to them and tell them a certain level of reality. So now we would end up with sons and daughters by proxy, right? Children that you have your 1 or 2 children on the team, but there's 16 players. So now you have 14 other girls or boys that you are now, or even more in the case of football, that you're now mentoring. And I can now influence or use our doctrine, our way of life, our religious, our culture to say certain cultural nuances or verbiage or words that could be in that mind from 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And by these children, as they're growing from 5, 6, 7, by the time they're in teenagers with our children, their parents tend to agree with the course of we don't want our children in certain things,
Right.
but we are bending and shaping and molding them. And many of those friends they played sports with are now still their friends as they're in their 20s and mid or late 20s to 18, 19 years old. Additionally, and then I'll step back. Additionally, we understood that when they do go out there, as my brother Dr. Tucker just said, we have to make sure that they know the lay of the land. The first lay of the land, we have to teach our children that the Canaanite is the devil. And now everybody doesn't have to agree with me, but I taught my
It's
children
real.
white man is the devil. He's not
Mhm.
your friend. See, when you understand something is the devil, when you understand something is dangerous, When you understand something is a threat, see, the lion doesn't sugarcoat the hyena's behavior to a lion cub. The
Right.
lion tells the hyena, the lion cub, the hyena is
Exactly.
your mortal enemy.
Mm,
Not because you want to eat the hyena, but because the hyena doesn't see your life as valuable. In fact, sees your life as a threat to their white or to their hyena genetic survival, like the great BB Francis Cress Welsing taught. So I taught my sons and my daughters reality from day one. I remember my second oldest, Mataldi, he used to see Canaanites and would say to me, Haru, devil. He couldn't say devil with the V. He said devil. I said, yeah, devil. And he learned to just, no, that's important because again, we as
yes.
parents, if you tell your child what they're dealing with, then they can understand why don't be aggressive. Because the person who's the devil wants you to be aggressive, as Dr. Tucker said, so they can kill you. But
Right.
oftentimes children will say, but why? Why can't I have my white friends over to spend the night? Because
Yes.
that's the devil. And
Mhm.
anytime they show devilish behavior, whether it's the young white girl in college who's putting her menstrual tissue and cycle in the black roommate's
Mm.
toothpaste and food, causing her hair to fall out, teeth to fall out, whether it's the melanin recessive Oriental boy who was poisoning his black African roommate, I show them those articles and say, this is what you're up against. Not to
Mhm.
make you feel intimidated, not to make you feel scared, not to make you worry around in anxiety, but to
Mhm.
make you aware. When you're aware of the enemy, it's like training a boxer. You tell them the other person got a good left jab and a right hook. They know how to prepare and train. Train your children. Train a child in the way they should grow, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. That's the Bible. So I train them. That's the devil. He's in this society, a ravening wolf, like the Bible says, a killer looking to hurt you. Be aware. Always have your guards ready to go and prepare yourself. And if you do that, your instinct will help you avoid most situations or at least be able to best navigate it as you get older.
Okay.
Can I
Thank
say
you.
white man's the devil on TV?
On this show you can.
Oh, okay, good.
Um, so Elder Owen Burroughs, now you have a daughter. So what do you say to her? What are you teaching her and telling her? Because Dr. Varma mentioned also molding and shaping the people around your child, not necessarily just your child directly, but those around her. So since she has to still go out there and choose a Nubian male, how do you have those type of conversations with her?
Well, I actually have two daughters,
Two
and
daughters with them.
yeah, right.
Yes.
Well, it's really a blessing that Dr. Varma expressed that, because I was thinking about that today. You know, I'm praying and hoping that my daughters are able to meet Nubian melaninated young men that they can share a life with and raise a family with. And I've always made it very clear to them who they are. First, I start with, this is who you are. This is what your potential is. This is what you have the potential to become. And they see how I treat their mother. So they should not anticipate or be with or expect anyone to treat them less than the way I interact with their mom. And I've also been very conscious in what I share with them. I don't hide it. I don't sugarcoat it. I let them know what the dangers and the risks of life are all about.
Mhm.
Um, just as far as yesterday, I was able to share with them something I learned in one of our classes in our class yesterday, and I was able to have a conversation with my daughters about it. And when you have daughters, it's different because you want to protect them as a father, and
Mhm.
you can only rely on providing them with that foundation so that when they step into the world, they are able to take care of themselves. And that means that they have to learn how to push through challenges and obstacles. Don't be so emotional the minute things happen. The world is going to end and you're crying, but you got to be able to stand up and push back. Um,
Mhm.
you know, the thing I learned yesterday, and I shared with my daughters, were my daughter just last week, was the one that's still in college, was talking about her classmates, and there was a group project, and everyone was kind of leaning on her to do the heavy lifting, and she was talking about how frustrating. how frustrating these students can be sometimes. And I was telling her, take the opportunity to look at the weaknesses of these individuals. What
Mhm.
makes them tick? Because you're not there to just learn the information. You're there also to learn how to compete and how to win against those very same people, so that your people can regain the upper hand. I've taught my daughters, I don't send you to school to get an education to be an employee. I sent you to school to learn so that you can start your own business, empower and hire other black people to work for you, work with you, so that you can change the narrative as it relates to our people. And I've
Mhm.
always expressed that to them very forcefully, and they know that. And that's one of the things that I'm very comfortable in knowing that I've provided them with that foundation where they're out
Mhm.
there now on their own, but they have those values to lean back on. And I also tell them, no
Mhm.
matter what you're going through, you can talk to me about it.
Mhm.
You know,
Yes. Okay. Mhm.
whatever you're facing, I've probably been through it, or your mom has been through it, and we're the best people that can help you get through it.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay, so with us living in a synthetic reality, when we deal a lot with illusion, we deal a lot with what's not real. So what is a real black man? What does he look like? What does he act like? What does he talk like? What is a real black man? Can we first just define
Ooh,
that before we
ooh,
go further in the
ooh, I
conversation?
know the answer. I know the answer. Everybody's sitting on cool. I want to see if we can talk. Can we have a real conversation with
Yeah,
Sister
Please,
man.
Zombie?
Let's do
All
it.
right, y'all. Everybody's sitting like we're on good behavior. Let's go. Ooh, teacher.
oh, please. Okay, go ahead, please, Dr. Varma.
No. I want to hear the answer. I'm just.
I'll go first with that
Okay.
Okay.
one. All right. A real black man is a black male that is willing to take on responsibility. It's a person that sees what's wrong in society and is willing to stand up and do something about it. It's a person that is sometimes it feels like we are alone with certain things. But since becoming a part of this family, I see that, I'm not alone. So we have to know who we are first,
Okay.
and we have to have a purpose in life. And we have to be willing, and we have to have the courage to stand up and do the things that need to be done within our communities, from educating our kids, from taking care of the families, creating businesses, um, providing things for not just our personal family, but for our extended family, for people in our community. We have to be the example. We have to be willing to teach those that we that's not a part of our family, because the family will come in contact with those outside of the family. So we have to be willing to stand up. We have to have the proper knowledge and education in order to be a benefit to our community and to society, and not be a burden to our society.
Mm.
Mm.
So those are some of the things we should be willing to do in order to see improvements within our community as black
Mhm.
people.
Mhm. Okay. Kahun Mantu, can you add on to that, please?
No. Um,
Where's my ladies at? I'm getting. Okay, go
Oh no,
ahead.
we're not attacking you. We're messing with each other. We're good. We're good.
um,
Hmm.
I'll do my best. We got to be an example, not just to the family, but to all those who see us. Remember, because as a real black man, everything that Dr. Tucker said, yes, we've got to be an example. You got to be the way you would expect people to treat you. So you're treating people that way. We got to encourage truth to be said and seen. Meaning, if like Dr. Varma said, that's just said about telling your child, was my daughter, she was the last one that was with me. I taught her everything in the sense of, the white man's a devil. Don't trust the white man. And I made that clear. I taught her everything that I did wrong. So you got to be willing to say to your children, look, this is the things I did wrong, but this is the way to do them right. So you've got to be that provider as well as the person that they can come to and talk to. They've got to be able to come and talk to, right? Because when I grew up, I didn't have that with my father, so I couldn't talk to him. It was just do as you're told. So you got to be the person that they can come and reason with, where that voice of reason is also there. That voice of understanding is there. You've got to make sure that within the community that you're known as being, I don't want to use the word fair, but being just. So you're treating people in a just manner so that they'll treat you back that way. You've got to also know that within the family, right, the respect is given to you as well as you give that respect. So for your wives, you've got to make sure that you're there to assist them as they assist you. It's a two-way street. So as a real black man, you've got to also make it clear to your children that we know this world that we're in is not fair. Don't butter it up and say, okay, everything that you try to do, you succeed in. No, that's not true. Give them reality, because there's loads of things that we've all tried to do and failed because others have got in your way to bring you down. And you've got to let them know when you go out there, you're in a war, the fight's on. So you've got to be there to advise them. And then when your children is grown, still be there as the rock that they can come back to. No matter what they do, they're still going to be able to come back to you and say, Dad, Uba, I need help. Okay, what's wrong? You know what I'm saying? So it's hard as a real black man. You've got to know what's going on in the world and have a vision for yourself, your children, and for others around you, and help them to get that way. That's some of the things that I believe that we need to know.
Okay. I want to ask each person the same thing because I want to get every aspect of it. We heard leadership, we heard being an example, we heard being honest, and just telling your children reality. Kahun, Uncle, what would you add to that? Something that we have not, heard as of yet.
Right. So, I mean, I agree with everything that's been said so far. What I'll add to the conversation is accountability. So, as a man, we have to be accountable. When we start to talk about when this question is asked, oftentimes the world teaches us that we're supposed to have an individual answer, and that as a male, you get to choose as to what a man is for you. But in our culture, we have community, so you have to be accountable to that community. In the scriptures in the book of Exodus and in the 10 Commandments, it says, honor your father and your mother so that your days can be long. So to honor that father as a young man, to honor that mother as well, but to honor that father means you would be watching that father, and you would be learning from that father. As Elder Owen was saying, his daughters will watch how he treats his wife. My children, all of our children, watch how we treat our wives, etc. Each example, I watched my father go through trials and tribulations. How did he deal with it? Did he sit in the corner and just cry? Or did he sometimes, even though he did cry, still get up and push through and figure out how he was gonna get through that situation.
Mm-hmm.
How did he respond to a threat? Did he escalate the threat, or did he de-escalate the threat? There's so many different things that as a young man I would watch from not only him, but even my uncles, my cousins. I watch what not to do. Oh, I don't want to be like him. He went to jail for 20
Mm-hmm.
years. Don't do that, right? I want to be like him. He's a millionaire. Whatever the case is, all these different components as to how you can be accountable to yourself, to your family, to your community, because we had standards. We had and have standards, right? The book of Proverbs talks about following the instructions of your father. But where did he get the instructions from?
Mm-hmm.
Someone had to be giving him instructions to pass on to
Right.
you, which means that there was a community that allowed for us to have a standard. We didn't get to choose what we wanted to be as a man, or say, oh, I think this is what a man should be. I see so and so on television wearing skinny jeans and he's got $1 billion, so I want to be like him. No, the men in the community say, we don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
That might be what they're doing, but we don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? And
Right.
I'll just say accountability, being accountable to that community that's going to help you to reach your fullest potential so that you can assist with what's best for the whole community, not just you and your manhood.
Okay.
I'll leave it
Okay.
there. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. We're going to come back to that also.
Mhm.
Elder Owen, do you mind adding on to that, please?
Yeah, I just had this conversation today um, with someone. I said no other race of man on the planet would allow their black women and mothers and daughters and children to be killed, to be
Mm.
abused over and over and over again without standing up and stopping it. Real black men protect their families. They
Yeah.
protect their wives, they protect their children, they protect the most vulnerable in their communities. I saw a young girl about 14 years old today standing up. It was starting to rain at a street light, asking cars that stop for money. You know, men cannot allow their daughters to be in the street begging for money. So we have to be able to protect the family because the family is the core of everything. Without the family, there's no us. And when you talk about what is a real man, this book that was written by someone on this panel is called Jean Nassarian, The Awakened Yet Endangered Nubian Male. This
Mm-hmm.
book will be a guide to what a real black man should be because it's going to tell you what the black man is up against, what systems are in place, what he needs to do to counteract what is being perpetuated against him. So,
Mm-hmm.
this book is a tremendous tool that we should give to our sons, our brothers, our husbands, our fathers, right? And our daughters as well, because they need to know the type of man that they should be gravitating towards. What are the characteristics of the man that's going to allow our genes to be here and to thrive in the future and to not be where it's always at the bottom, being suppressed,
Mm-hmm.
being oppressed and repressed. So we need to be
Mm-hmm.
able to defend our families and we need to be able to follow the blueprint that's been given to us. This book, written by Dr. A.J. Varma, is one of the keys to a successful black man. And we have to be able
Okay.
to draw on that knowledge and put that into our uh, toolbox, so to speak, so that we can now start to create an environment, a community of men that are doing things the right way.
Okay. Now, I want to ask you a question based off of something that you just said. If you can give us a quick answer, we're going to, because this is something I want to speak more in depth about. What you said, we have to protect our daughters. Our daughters can't be out there begging on the street. How does that protection translate to the male? Because a lot of times we speak about protecting the female, but how is our males being protected? Are you suggesting that the protection for the male is any less than it is for the woman, the female, the daughter?
No, I was saying the female just because of I saw her on the street today. But the
Hmm.
protection of the family goes to all gender. And it's going back to what Kawan Anku said earlier. Men have to create a safe environment for the family. So the environment must be created on an individual level, but on a community level, so that we protect all involved. All
Okay.
that reside there needs to be protected.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Um, Finally, Dr. Rama, me. Okay, it's your turn. Can you please let us know not only what a real man is, but also tribal leader. You've used the term tribal leader pertaining to the female, but tribal ruler pertaining to the male. And normally a person would think, well, the man is supposed to lead, so why wouldn't the man be a tribal leader? So what is not only a real man, but how do you tie in a tribal ruler into that definition?
Well, first and foremost, as each of the brothers have just explained very clearly, very eloquently, the reality is that when you say real black man, everybody focuses on the black man part. And I believe that we should also focus on the word real. The word real, REAL, and the word rule, as in ruler, is the same word. Again, English, most of the English words are very basic in their construct. That which is real has to be measured, has to be shaped, has to have dimensions, has to have depth, has to have width, has to have height, has to have circumference. You're able to take a ruler. People think ruler means to be, I'm going to tell you what to do. No, that's not ruler. Ruler is the measurement, the thing by which you measure a person's worth or their productivity, their abilities, their potential. You can measure that with a ruler. So when we say the black male has to be a tribal ruler, he has to be the standard by which manhood, by which intelligence, by which abilities are judged, by which they're measured up against. And that requires us to go back and look at black men and what we were at our greatness. Now, we can go back to
Mm,
ancient Africa, ancient South America, North America, or we can go back to Marcus Garvey. What
correct.
was it that Garvey represented? Elijah Muhammad. What was it that Elijah Muhammad, the Baba, represented? Baba Tumre, Toro Schomburg, Van Sertimer, Ivan Van Sertimer, the great Joseph Ben Yochanan, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, the great Neely Fuller, in fact. He gives you and I a means by which to measure ourselves. Because he says in there, the idea of I'm a man, that's the first mistake. He says that most black people, and this the book is called The Compensatory Race Relations or Counter Racist Code. And he says in there that for any black person to say and believe that we are men and women is a misnomer. And I'm not going to go with the conscious people say that's because we're gods. No, no, he's saying that you're not a man or woman until you can control the things that men and women control.
Exactly.
So I don't even want to start off by us saying that being a real man. I think we're working on becoming real men once again. We're working on becoming real women once again by using the ruler and the leadership, by using to lead. In order to lead, you must first be able to follow. So if we say that the Nubian woman is the tribal leader, that means that first and foremost, she was following the rules and regulations established by the family, tribe, and nation. But many
That's
black
right.
Right.
people grab Gene Isis and run. If
Mm,
the Nubian
Right.
male is a tribal ruler, he must first be measured, weighed, put in different solutions to see how he will adjust and adapt to know if he is qualified to stand in the position by which the rest of us will be measured.
mm,
Once we can determine that, that would be by our religion, the spirituality, religion, whatever it is that we follow, the rules that it sets, the edicts that it gives us, our economics. Can this black man provide? And the provide doesn't just mean to go and get a job and work 9 to 5, but to be able to create subsequent income legally, right? We refer, right? Legally to be able to support said family. Labor. Does he create a way in which the family can earn? Sex gender is the relationship between the dynamic between male and female interaction. And I don't just mean who earns more and who doesn't earn more, but how we spend what we earn, how we invest what we earn, how we utilize what we earn, how we purchase the purchasing power, land ownership, etc. Is this person well traveled? This is what Garvey and them give us. This is what Elijah Muhammad, this is what Winnie Mandela, or I should say Nelson Mandela, give us. This is what Fidel Castro, this is what Gaddafi, Mugabe, real men who can stand. Now we can put the sex, gender, the relationship. Is a real man nowadays understanding that being a man means being a man? right? I think this whole
Right.
LGBTQ community, and I don't hate nobody before they start that, but I do think they're confusing the hell out of us
Yeah.
because the guy who's walking around, hi, if he's a man, I don't want to be a man because because now I'm being measured to him. Whoa,
Right.
you follow? No offense, but I think they should have a category by which he can be measured. When he's like, hi, and ladies think that that's cute. Oh, he's in touch with his feminine side. No, I think he fell in love with his feminine side. He didn't just get in, but that's a different discussion. So I
Mhm.
think I might get in trouble, but it's okay. I speak
No.
truth, right? The reality is, so I don't think that we're just saying, man, we have to take control and we must begin to redefine for ourselves and for our
That's
people
it.
what
Right.
manhood is. So that
Mhm.
and in that same discussion, that would mean we have to define what being a woman is or what being a lady is, right? Being a woman and being a lady, two different things. Being a man and being a noble, upright man is two different things. Anybody can be a man. If you got a penis, hell, Bruce Jenner wants to get rid of his penis and he's still going to be a man, no matter what. Because when he goes to
Mhm.
get checked up, his prostate, they still got to go through the back, can't go through the front. It's just the way it's going to work. So then we have to, I'm sorry, it's what it is. So that would be the sex gender. Then we have education. Real men don't just determine what our children are being educated with, but we determine the type of schools that we will create both in the academic environments and outside, because we learn more outside of the classroom than we'll ever really learn inside of the classroom. Real
Mhm.
men will have to decide by being the measuring rod or stick, like I say, thy rod and thy staff. The females held the staff, the males held the rod. And anyone who held both the rod and the staff was able to govern both societies. So we got to teach the next generation in that sex gender conversation how to govern themselves accordingly. Now, some of you have heard that phrase at some places before, right? When
Right.
we move from that governance of self and kind, which would be the education, then we get into the law. We know what the laws of the lands in which we live are. How do we circumnavigate those laws? How do we bend them like others, but don't break them like others in order to bring about the best results for our families? And then when we
Right.
do all of that, we'll have things worthy of being secured, war security. We have to put together security apparatuses in our churches, our mosques, our synagogues to protect our members from some fool like they did in Charleston, walking inside and shooting up people because racism, white supremacy is real. Then we can determine our entertainment. Real men don't watch frivolous shows. Real men don't sit around watching TV shows that are just going to dummy them down. They watch shows that's either going to
Right.
be documentaries, news programs, or if they're going to watch entertainment that's not. I was watching a show the other night, and it was the guy who plays what's the Avenger with the wings, the black guy. I can't remember his name, but he's in some show. They go into virtual. Oh, it's a virtual show, and the next thing you know, he's in the virtual with another virtual, and the two virtuals are two men. I said, "Oh, here we go." Click, change it off. I'm not going to watch that foolishness. As soon as the show goes left, I go right.
Right. Right.
Right.
Yes.
Real men
Exactly.
know what entertainment is because real men know that our offspring's always watching. And real
Yeah.
men will
Right.
find real women, real ladies who understand the importance of the family unit and are not easily rocked because something don't go their way, or not easily, oh, you were talking about me, and play my favorite banjo song.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
easily weakened, but understand that we're fighting for our survival and all of the constant
That's
as
right.
men. We can't fall apart at any turn. Real men are able to go through the fire and come out battered, bruised, torn, ripped, but we come out and we come out and we
Come out.
regroup, push. Real men have to be able to understand what that is. Real men have to also means that we have to understand politics, the political structure, what we're up against, how to navigate that, and how to become successful as a collective. And the most important thing is real men understand the importance of brotherhood. Real
Mhm.
Mm.
loners. See, the lions don't roam alone. The lions roam in packs because the hyenas roam in packs because the wolves roam in packs. So if we're lions, as we are, as the symbol of the great Serengeti, if we're elephants, they move in herds. If we're wildebeest, we move in herds. Real men don't do anything in and of themselves. They seek to find other men of like passion and move with those men. That would be my definition of real men.
Okay, I have a question about that a little later on. And we also are going to get into the demasculinization of the male. It's going to get juicy. I have some questions. We may go a little over, but we just want to be able to bring everything full circle. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. You've been tuned into the Vantage Point. We'll be right back.
Royal Breakthrough Hair and Beauty. is presenting our natural hair care line, which will provide your hair with all the nutrients needed for stronger and healthier hair. With natural ingredients such as avocado oil, jojoba oil, nettle oil, and many more included in our products, your hair is sure to flourish and grow to its full potential. Purchase your Royal Breakthrough hair care products today at www.royalbreakthrough.com and enjoy the full Royal Breakthrough experience.
African Holocaust Month, International African Holocaust Month. It's coming up October 1st. It begins for 31 days. You know, for those, it will be 4 Saturdays, the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th of October. But that International African Holocaust Month is a special time. Also, we're telling people, send in the name of your relatives who have passed that you want to be on the wall of remembrance. You can get your bracelet. Send in the name of your relative. African Holocaust Month, International African Holocaust Month.
Tune in on Sunday for part 3 as we go even further and look at how to prepare yourself as we enter the winter solstice and be prepared as a scriptural basis of your life.
Join us for our class. There is a time and season for everything under the sun. Join us on Journey Home Group or Cooped TV. See you soon.
Would probably like to do.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Vantage Point. We have with us today all of these strong, resilient, lovely men on the screen, bringing to us a real conversation, some things that we have to take a further look at. We kind of spoke about what do we do? What do we speak to our children about? How do we bring this across to them? And then we're going into real men. Hopefully, we get to take a question from the comment section they have about what a real man's advice. So we'll get around to that. But I want to first speak about the brokenness of the Nubian male. What is the body language of a broken man? Dr. Tucker, would you like to jump in?
The body language. I would say someone that's walking around with the head down, someone that if you're trying to speak to them, they speak in a real low tone, or you ask them a question and they hesitate to answer the question.
Mm.
Um, Something is usually going on with this person.
Okay.
You know, they don't give you eye contact when you speak to them. And uh, things like that we should pick up on and do a little more in-depth investigation when we're communicating with these people. If it's a young man that I'm speaking to, I try to develop a relationship with this young man to see what type of environment he's brought up in, to see if I can meet his parents. You know, if I can meet his parents, I get to know them to see what's going on. Um, I've had some athletes, some younger athletes that were like that. Um, One kid was being bullied in school, and I was coaching football at the time. So his mom came to me after I think we had been practicing about a month and a half. So you, I was pretty strict with football conditioning, being on time. If I give you a drill to do, we kind of made sure that you did the drill properly.
Mhm.
And just by doing things like this, it gives the kids a certain level of confidence when they go out. So this particular kid that I'm speaking about, his mother comes to me about a month and a half into the season, and she tells me that her son finally fought back at school,
Mm.
and she thanked me for that. So I'm
Mm.
like, you
Wow.
happy that kids fighting? But she said that kids would pick on him all the time, and prior to him being around other young men on the team, going through drills, we would exercise, we would do push-ups, do conditioning drills, and we would eventually we got to the tackling drills. So these things gave this kid a level of confidence where he was no longer bullied. But he was a kid that didn't want to come to practice initially.
Mm.
So, just by looking at a kid's body language, we can develop a relationship with them, and we can introduce things to them that can kind of assist them in their development.
Okay. Now, last week we had a show with the sisters, right? And one thing I got to give us credit for, you guys are failing miserably at is we gave real examples in our lives. We put ourselves on the hot seat, in the hot spot, and we said, this is what I see within myself. And we were able to point that out. So when we're speaking about a broken man, I would assume that because we all been attacked or still being attacked by racism, white supremacy, that brokenness has taken place within everyone, including myself here today at some point, and that we're always in the process of repairing. So how one does the compensation for that brokenness take place? Because some men, they get the big bad, oh, I'm tough, syndrome, and you have different ways in which it's shown. So how does that compensation take place, Brother Owen? And then how did it also take place within you?
Okay. Fortunately, or some people may say unfortunately, I've
Don't
had
let her
many.
trick you into start crying, Owen.
No, hold on, no.
Don't let her trick
Come
you
on,
into
hey,
start
hey,
crying.
hey,
I'm just making
come on
sure
now.
because I know how they look.
No, I got it. Okay.
She trying to trick
No,
us.
no, no,
She
no,
trying,
no. Hey,
all the
no,
other
no, no.
brothers be like, nope,
Hey,
nope. She like, she
listen.
want to have
No,
you like,
I'm gonna
and
deal with this.
hi,
See,
I'm
no,
Owen, and
hey,
I'm
you,
broken.
those jewels above our eye aren't gonna twinkle me. Don't worry, I got this. So, so I've been through a lot of situations in my life that it's a lot of trauma from being stabbed in my jugular vein, shot up close with a shotgun by mistake by my dad, having a blood clot in my lung, being over 400 pounds and fighting for my life on multiple medications, um, losing jobs where I had very high rank and seniority. So going through things like that, those are what I call a moment in time where you draw a line in the sand and you say, what am I going to do? Those are defining moments. And it goes back to something AJ Varma said, Dr. Varma said about brotherhood. You have to have some type of support system that you can go to lean on without being seen as weak. Men, where there is a friend or two, a brother that you can go to and they can help you navigate through those difficult times. Because you see, you cannot develop strength without going through challenges. Challenges will come. Every single person walking earth is going through a challenge. But how do we navigate through the challenge? We have to understand that we have everything within us. This is our doctrine now. Our doctrine tells us we have everything within our DNA chromosomes, our genetic experiences to get through what we're going through. Someone in our genetic makeup has gone through that very exact same thing. So knowing that I have within me the power to get through this. I am not this circumstance. I am not this condition. I am above. I am observing. I am watching. I will get through this. We've been taught that. So by having that understanding that there is a support system, a true brotherhood that you can lean on, and that allows you to get through that challenge and obstacle and push through to the other side.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And
Okay.
that's how I
Now,
got through.
okay. Thank you. So, Kahumantu, You're on the hot seat. I want you to put Kahun Mantu aside for a second. I want to talk to, is it Doug Bug? What was his name?
Dub bug.
Doug Bug? Yeah, so Doug Bug. I need you to come out right now. So when you were up there, when you were DJing, you were mixing, you was on top of the
Top
world.
boy.
So how did that, were you in at your highest level, your highest potential, or were you compensating for some of the brokenness that took place in your life? Or just give us the reality of how you seen this happen within you.
I don't know what to do.
Ladies, these men are hard, man. They came on here with this exterior, these grills on their face. This is the hard one.
I wasn't
Oh, that's funny.
compensating. I tell you what, when I was Dub Bug, I actually felt like, whoa, I'm having my teenage years again, all over again. It was fun. For me, I didn't see that. I saw that as a point in my life where, whoa, I was seeking to do something that I was good at. And I was fed up of just working and just working to make money. So I said, I remember the day when I said, this is what I'm going to do. I was wiring a mixing console. It was a long mixing console. It was maybe about 6 feet long. And I looked down the mixing console. I said, are you going to do this for the rest of your life? I said, no. That's the last console I'm going to build. I'm going to do what I enjoy doing. So as Dub Bug, I was on top of the world. I was doing stuff. I was involved with my family. I was raising the child. I was far from broken. In fact, it was so good. I used to say to myself, it's boring. It's boring being so great. That's what I'm honest. I just feel it's too easy. So I didn't feel broken. No. I felt
man. Okay, can I borrow your pen?
Let me finish. I'd have had to gone back to when before then, when I'd have said, well, as a youth growing up, I was running around the street and I was doing crazy, and I didn't know what a father should be.
Okay, there we go.
You know what I'm saying? At that point, when I was in my teens, I had my children when I was in my teenage, and I just wasn't a good father. Okay. I just didn't know what a father could be. So then I would say yes.
Okay.
At that point.
There we go. That's the juice I was looking for.
Okay, I know. I just realized that at some point I've got to fix myself. And I started to get things right. I started to do things right and tried my best to be a better father and tried my best to develop myself, because I'd realized that I just wasn't what I was supposed to be. So now if you ask me about a broken man, I'm looking in the society today and I'm saying, well, there's a lot of things that I see out there with men who aren't trying to be like what we just mentioned a while ago as being a true man. And for instance, I was in the show that I do on the radio, one of the brothers came on and said, part of the reasons why we're suffering from all these illness is because we don't latch onto our feminine side. I was like, what? What? So we're grabbing the brokenness for me is when we buy into what society says you need to be in order to be good, in order to be a real husband, in order to be a real father.
Those expectations.
What say, yes, because they've taught us that that's the way. Right. So, you're gonna buy into allowing your feminine side to come out. You're gonna sit down there and and there's nothing wrong with crying, and encouraging you to do things that you don't want to do. No, that's a broken man. You know what I'm saying? So no, as dub bug, if you ask me that dub, no, I was on top of the world, and I was that being that was able to see that from here I needed to make the next step to where I am now. So no, that's not the
Right.
person you wanted to meet. You wanted
Okay.
to meet the guy before that.
Okay. Okay. So, okay, it happened prior to that. So, Calhoun Uncle, can you tell us when does it normally take place for a Nubian male as a boy, as a child? I'm not sure when this normally takes place. How, when do you normally see this brokenness, happening to you all?
Well, I mean, it's not something that is supposed to happen. It happens, but it's not something that's supposed to happen. I could say for me that in my life, when my parents got divorced, that was something that was traumatic for me, and it affected me. I never described it as me being broken, but there's things that developmentally I missed, or developmentally I was traumatized by, that I had to overcome. I'm sure it played out in relationships. It played out in my everyday life, and there's still things that I'm most assuredly sure that I'm still working through. What I'll say though is that when we talk about what a broken man is, not being yourself, always trying to be just kind of piggybacking off what Colin Muntu said, this idea of validation and not knowing how to laugh at yourself. If you can't laugh at yourself, you're broken. You understand? Not being able to be who you are, even in the face of people saying, well, that's crazy. If you can't have some standards and have a way about yourself, even in the face of everybody around you saying, oh, that's crazy, then that could be a sign of being broken, right? If you're a man who, at the end of the day, and this, you want some juice? Let me give you some juice. If you're a man who is trying to please females as opposed to noble ladies, and what I mean by that, females are the people who they 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 want what they want. They don't know what it is. They want it now, and you're racing around trying to please that. A noble lady understands that there's a law that she has to submit to. You're not following her, you're following the law. You're understanding that there's a law that both you and she must bind to in order for the Most High Heavenly One to work through you, and you work together in that law. But if you're one of these men who always trying to please females, then unfortunately, you're going to be like a lot of the men we see that are running in circles trying to please something that can never be pleased. Because if you trying to please someone, the Most Heavenly One gave you eyelashes, and you wasn't pleased with them, so you go put some of your own eyelashes on. The Most Heavenly One gave you your own natural hair. You wasn't pleased with that, so you went and put on your own hair that adds to what the Most High gave you. A person like that cannot be pleased. So a broken man is going to run behind that and try to please that. It's never going to work. It's never going to work. It's just like running after a society that wasn't built for you.
Okay.
A broken man, yeah. So this idea of just not being yourself, that's a sign of being broken.
Okay. That's the perfect segue into my next question. I want to switch it
I
up.
don't get to answer the broken man.
No,
Okay.
you don't. No, I'm going to switch it up right before we get to you.
I was waiting.
I want to switch it up. And you can tie it in here if you like. You can tie it in because I want to know, how does the wife that a man choose reflects who he is?
Wow.
Oh, silence in the heavens.
Who's that
Okay.
to?
I didn't know whose question it was. I
That's
wasn't.
for you.
I thought it was.
That's for you,
I thought
Dr. Mama.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, as our brothers they all just said it very clearly. All of us at some point in life have been broken. It's just the way in which we respond to our brokenness. If I fall and I scrape my knee, if I have a mother who says, "Oh, baby, come here. What you got, a boo boo?" And she takes it, she kisses it. Oh, you're gonna be okay. A man is going, the atom, like in an atomic structure, the atom seeks itself. So a man raised with this overly loving will seek out an overly loving presentation. And any female who can match that will grab his attention. A man whose mother says, "Come here, let me see. All right, let me put a band aid on." And she's more, "Okay, it hurts. You're going to be okay. You're going to be all right. Kiss it." And he goes. He's going to seek a woman who tends to be that way. A man who has a mother like my own, who's more like, "That's a cut. Let's put some alcohol on it before it gets infected." Ah, good. That's okay. That's how you know it's working. And kind of prepares you in that manner. That type of person, these are the ways each man will seek. I'm just using three because that's a number we can comprehend. Said man goes out in life and now begins to navigate the dating scene, whether it's the bug or Elder Owen or Calhoun Uncle or Dr. Tucker or Dr. Wright or whatever. Each of us began to navigate based off of our understanding from the comic books to the Cinderella to the Snow White to the movies, whether you looked at James Bond. James Bond was a hoe, right? But if you like James Bond, you're gonna go out and hoe, because James Bond, at the end of every movie, he begins every movie with a woman and he ends every movie with a different woman. And all the women love him. He's Bond, James Bond. Boom. So that
Right.
locks in. Depending on which fairy tale each of us, because every man, woman, and child growing up under racism, white supremacy, Arab supremacy, Oriental supremacy, Aryan supremacy, we take on the mentality. It shapes and molds us. What leads to us becoming broken is when we find out that everything that we thought, everything that we believe has been a lie. That's the first stage of breaking. It actually breaks our psyche, right? If I'm a man, I grew up in consciousness, so I want conscious women. So I meet women in life and they sound conscious. This is I'm
Right.
talking. This is my confessions, right? And they're
Right.
talking to me with a level of consciousness. But I was raised to go hard, never quit, no matter what, see it through. What you don't start what you can't finish. Anybody else went through that? Don't start what
Yep.
you can't finish.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? And
Yes.
so
Oh, yeah.
I grew with this mindset, and thus I would seek women who were talking lifetime. We, no
Mm.
matter what, we not gonna quit. No matter what, we're gonna see it through. We're gonna stick together. I'm not gonna let my child grow up without his father. I'm not gonna let my child grow up without her mother. We're gonna grow together. We're gonna find a way. We're gonna push through. And no matter what, we're gonna win. Whoa, team on three.
Right.
Boom. So I grew with that programming. I grew up in a conscious community in an or actual organization and neighborhood, coming from an African family, grew up in an African community. And in those communities, we stay intact no matter what. But what I had to learn was there's a difference between talking conscious, talking lifetime, talking pushing through. And this is to your question about, how do you choose the type of woman you work with? I had to find out that there are people, men and women, because it works both ways, who talk the conscious talk, but they can't see lifetime. Lifetime to them. If I meet a person, I got to know if this man has been with, if he started having sex at age 20 and he's 40 and he slept with 40 women in the last 20 years, that means he averages 2 women per year. I think Calhoun Munter has spoken to this many, many times, and he said that that this person creates a groove in their life. Well, that groove means that this man has been programmed every 2 years to look for new breasts, right? To look for a new person, because his programming, or if it's the case of a woman, if she's been programmed to look for a new private part for men, right? His programming or her programming, this loop, they begin to bug out after a certain amount. If the woman's average or the man's average relationship lasted 5 years, then every 5 years they need a new partner. The gene, if they're not conscious, if in every 10 years. So the type of woman that you would choose has to be someone that's not just giving you a facsimile, or man that you choose, of what you like to hear. And this is where brotherhood and sisterhood come to play. See, if I'm a brother and I'm interested in this lady and I bring her to the sisterhood, old school, those sisters can put her to task and tell
Oh,
me if
yes.
she's fronting. The same way, if
Yeah.
you
Right.
as a lady brought a man to a brotherhood of men that are men, we all of us in this room, we can go under the sink, take the old pipe out, put a new pipe in. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
All of
Yes.
us in this room, if we had to change the tire on a car or the fan belt or put in a new radiator, all of us in this room could do so. Yes?
That's right.
Yes.
All of us in this room, if we
Yes.
had to put some plasterboard on the wall, we could do it. All of us in this room can know how to go out in the garden and run and run and put tomatoes or potatoes or whatever vegetable in the ground. All of us in this room, if we had to guise or kill a chicken, everybody could do it. All of us in this room, if we're walking down the street and somebody jump out, try to hurt our family, we can push back. All of it. So we have a
Yes.
standard of manhood. And if we have that and a man is brought amongst us, we can tell you within 24 hours,
Oh yeah. He no fool
he,
with that
he,
one.
he has potential. But then what we understand is in that potential, women have to, or men have to allow those women to now go amongst the sisterhood and be raised. In our ancient ways, the man didn't shape his wife and the woman didn't shape her husband. The society and the tribal societies and fraternities and sororities and organizations, they shaped me as a man. So by the time I
Right.
got to you, I was already programmed for what a man would be, and it was
Right.
determined by the elders in the society what that would be. Now a
Right.
man is trying to make his wife a lady, and a woman is trying to make her husband a noble man, and we both fail miserably. Because I'll be honest with you, my sister, I don't know what it takes to be a woman. I mean, for real, real. I know what a real woman's supposed to be like, act like. I know what I've heard from my mom and my aunts and those women who've influenced me. I know what Frances Cress Welsing and Shahrazad Ali say,
Mm,
but to really
that's
say
right.
like deep down my my feminine side, I don't know what that means. But
Right.
I have some sisters that do. So I would take you and say, go be amongst those sisters. Let me see what they say. And we've got to start
Right.
having that level of trust
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
shape each other. We require a sisterhood, a brotherhood. If not, we all gonna get broken. I've been there too many times where you think the person's on the same page with you, male or female, and you believe wholeheartedly they're gonna see it to the end. And I always tell people until you get mad. Everything's gravy until you get mad at me. Everything's love, oh, eyes batting, everybody, woo, and the music is playing. But the moment the person gets angry with you, they fall back to the ways of the society, and the ruling society will do everything in its power for the sake of white genetic survival to destroy any potentiality we have as being together. So we
Mm-hmm.
need a new definition by getting away from this decrepit and decaying mentality that they told us. If not, we're gonna all of us here, we can sugarcoat it, but we've all been broken. I was with someone
Yep.
20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Thought everything was gravy, everything was perfect. We doing this, we to the end until
Right.
something was said that I didn't like. And the moment that I didn't like it, I don't mean I me, right? I is an upside down we, right? The moment you hear something you don't like, then you rebel against it,
Mm-hmm.
even though the culture says this is what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I agree with the
Right.
culture. I agree with the consciousness. Dr. Varner, I'm looking in the chat room. As long as I'm saying black man, black power, black power, whoa. But now what I'm saying, that's outside of liquor. But the reality is, as long as we keep doing that game, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
see there's broken men. 9 out of 10 men are broken. We get broken 24
Um,
hours a day, 7 days a week. Is how the body's resiliency to that being broken is
right.
what you see.
Right.
I
Okay.
get broken
Right.
every day in some way, form, or fashion. Whether it's one of the children not talking to me because they had a conniption, or
Mm-hmm.
somebody a bill is due, whatever it is. We are constant because we are under psychological attack. So black men and black women, we are broken. We are being attacked psychologically constantly through television, media,
Yes.
music, telling me I'm too tall, too short, too dark, too light, too woman, too man, too manly, too womanly, too
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, not in touch, too much in touch. All of that breaks us constantly.
Mm-hmm.
How do we have the resilience, which is African Holocaust Month, the strength and resilience of a
Mm-hmm.
people? How do
Mm-hmm.
we develop the resilience to be able to recover? And as any athlete, Dr. Tucker can tell you, Calhoun Uncle in swimming, Calhoun Muntu in flow, Elder Owen in life coaching, We all understand. And athletes, what makes the superior athlete is not their play, but their resilience to recovery. When you call a 30-second timeout in the NBA, those guys sit for
That's
30
right.
seconds and then can go back in there and are ready to play because their body's resiliency. Me and you, if we run up and down that court for 10 minutes, we sit down, we ain't going back in the game because we don't have the resilience. Our training
Mm-hmm.
our
Mm-hmm.
training, right? The training that we develop, the mental, spiritual, physical, emotional training, you train every day. I read every day. I write every day. I teach every day because I do it every day. I become so good at it that when I do it, it's not having to calculate how to do it. But if I only did it when it
Right.
was a call, it would show. So we train every day. A superior athlete, a superior thinker, a superior mind,
Mm-hmm.
seeking superior relationships has to do it every day and then require that any woman or man in their life has to do the same every day. I'll leave
Okay.
it there.
Right.
Okay. Yes. All
They
right.
cannot be unequally yoked.
Can't be unequally yoked.
Okay.
That's right.
Yes. So I wanna get as many of these questions in, and I know we don't have a lot of time. So we're gonna play pass the ball. You're gonna dribble it down the court, pass it to your brother. He's gonna shoot, dunk it, boom. We're gonna try to get through everybody because I really want to ask some of these questions. So part of that brokenness or part of that attack, I think, as a lady or a Nubian regal lady, we don't realize, and Bibi Shahrazad Ali spoke about this, our part in it, knowing that the black man is already
Yeah.
being attacked enough from outside the home, knowing that he's already being bombarded enough from outside the home, and then they come into the home and we're creating an environment that's not really, conducive to give him the push that he needs, right?
Mm.
So
Right.
what is how does words affect the Nubian male, Dr. Tucker?
How do words
How does
affect the
words
Nubian
affect
male?
the Nubian male?
Well, I think words, there's power behind words. Uh, we have words that we say, but it also how you say something, the emotion you have behind the word.
Mm.
Just like Basesh always gives the example when you're talking to someone, he's like, "Oh, you stupid." That's in a joking way.
Mhm.
Okay, so the person will feel or know that you're joking. So, but if I look at you, I'm like, "Oh, you're stupid." That's a different feeling.
Mhm.
Takes on a whole new different meaning.
Mhm.
So words are important,
Mhm.
but also how we use those words
That's right.
are important. And
Okay.
also we need to know what the words mean that we're using.
Mhm.
Sometimes we use words, we don't know what they mean. We're saying something, we are implying something, but you're actually saying something else.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
so words have power. How you say it to the person matters. So we have to be mindful of how we say something, and we have to be mindful of the actual words that we use.
Is when you say it, is that also important? When you say something, sometimes you may just need to wait a little later, wait to the next day. How important is the timing?
Timing is always important. A lot of times, if it's a heated conversation,
Mhm.
both parties, if it's an argument, both parties may need time to settle down, cool off. So, in a nice way, you could say we can revisit this conversation tomorrow.
Mhm.
That way, everybody gets time to think, cool off, weigh out things, and then you can have a calm conversation.
Okay, let's pass the ball to Kahun Mantu. Tar, what does a healthy environment, what does a good environment, a healthy home look like for the Nubian male?
It's a joyful home. It's like we said earlier. It's a place where everything is happening. Where it's a reality. We're dealing with ups and downs. It's balanced, meaning that um, you're going to have fun. It's going to be spiritual. It's going to be pleasant. There's going to be little niggly bits, but it's not like with
What's a niggly bit?
arguments. When I say niggly, I mean like,
Legally.
I mean, see, because I
Not
don't
like something you
believe
pick
that.
up from the buffet.
Yeah, I don't believe that you're supposed to have arguments.
Mm.
No,
Not supposed to have arguments.
no. I
What
don't
you
agree
supposed
with
to have?
that. No, discussions. You have
Yes,
discussions.
yes, yes.
You don't have no. That's not in my house.
Hmm.
I'll leave you doing that, and I'll come back when that's over.
Well, Calhoun, before you keep going, it's not always an argument.
It's a discussion.
Sometimes women, sometimes ladies, we may not say things in an aggressive way, but we'll find a sneak, a little sneak, a way to sneak attack. And so, is it necessarily the argument that's the problem, or
No,
is it
if
is
it's
it
a
the
discussion, it's a discussion. Then we're
mm,
talking to each other. Yeah, we're having a conversation. But if you're screaming at me, then I'll leave you to scream.
Yeah.
Why
mm.
do I need to be there for you to scream? I can go outside and hear you, right?
Oh, that's funny.
Outside voice inside. Yep.
So this if we're discussing, we don't need to argue. I don't like I said, I don't believe in that. So the house is going to be pleasant. You, like I said, you have niggly bits. What do I call niggly bits? That what you know what I call niggly bits.
Right.
That's where things been they got a bit ruffled, and we spoke. Um, your vibe raised up a little bit. It came back down because we understand that we don't do arguments in this house, and we flow. It's
Right.
about respecting each other and showing that respect. I said it earlier. So once I have respect for you, I won't need to shout at you. I'll just talk to you, and you talk to me, and we'll talk to the children. Now, occasionally, the children they need to get a little bit of sorting out, but they're children. They expect that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So no, it's so
Okay.
for the words that we use on each other and the way we talk to each other is very important, as Dr. Tucker mentioned a while ago. So if I talk to you with respect, talk to me with respect. The house is lovely.
Mm. Okay, I want to pass the ball to Dr. Varma. I want to take something you said, and pass it over because sometimes, especially because you mentioned this idea of the little white girl. So now I feel like all the males in the room are now going to always point everything out to be the little white girl. It could be anything. They're going to just call you a little white girl, right? So since this is being taken advantage of,
Precedence has been set.
this is being taken full advantage of. So, how does a lady have a discussion with her husband, with the male, however, and it can be in the way that Kahun Mantu mentioned. It could be a discussion. It doesn't have to be an argument. But how does she do that without being called a little white girl for having opposing feelings or opinions or anything like that?
Well, I think first of all, there's a little white boy as well in all the men, right? We were all raised under racism, white supremacy. So there's a little white boy in all of us and a little white girl in all of you. So we can both use it against each other, though that wasn't the intent. No more than the divine feminine was supposed to make all black women suddenly superior, as the Nubian male, the endangered species, make all black men suddenly righteous.
Mm-hmm.
I think not that I think, I know, as Elder Owen and Kahun Mantu, Kahun Uncle, Elder Dr. Tucker has said, we have to first define the culture. You can't grab pieces of a culture. What I've found being raised in America, living and traveling the world, is that we of the diaspora, we tend to, in England, etc., we take cultures, we take dibbly bits, I'm gonna use the word, right? Dibbly bits, right? We take bits of other people's cultures and we just assimilate, because that's what cultural diffusion is. We become white people in that we take other people's cultures and other people's language and other people's ideas, and we don't go to those people to have them define how we should live that culture idea. We just grab it and apply it. So somebody hears little white girl, oh, I'm gonna grab that. And that's, if I'm saying it, let me culturally define what that means, or little white boy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for example, if we say and I'm gonna do quick because I know you said it's a few minutes, that if we say that the little black men are not in tune with their feminine side, of course not, because they haven't first defined what the masculine side is. You got to first define what the masculine side is, come to grips with that, and then we can determine what a feminine side would be. right? We have to first define to a black female what the feminine side is, and then it will allow her to determine what a masculine or polarity or receptivity or repellingness would be. But the dominant society, the racism, white supremacy, the counterculture tool, the thing that's countering our indigenous culture, it doesn't allow us to have that conversation. So what ends up happening is when you and I are having a disagreement as a husband and wife, and we're all going through this, the disagreement is predicated on you trying to have the last word and me trying to have the last word. And last wordism is not African in its intent. African culture doesn't seek to have the last word. African culture has a culture, and that culture has scripture or text, and the scripture or text has the last word.
Mm.
So when you and I decide to live by the scriptural text of our respective cultures as Native Americans or Chinese or Tibetans or Malaysians or Malaysians or Africans, Yoruba, whatever the dominant culture, each of them had texts. And those texts said that anything that you and I could go through as a couple has already been gone through by someone 1,000 times over. They are going to dictate how we handle the situation. So you don't, as my sister, as you just said, you don't have to kind of say it, and kind of take the words you use, you saying what you say, but you're
Sarcastic,
taking it. What did you say? How'd you
Right.
say it?
This is sarcastic.
Sarcastically, that's not the word you use, right?
Oh,
But you're going to take a little jab kind of thing, but not knowing because you don't
sneak
know the
attack. Yeah.
master. What
Hmm.
you said?
Sneak attack.
Right, sneak attack, the
Mm.
word attack, because you don't know the male psyche. Words, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Hmm.
Amongst men, that's not true because all
Mm.
men get punched in the mouth growing up for saying the wrong word.
That's true.
Every man on this panel can tell you, we know as men growing up, if you rolling with fellas, what you say can get you knocked out
Hmm.
because
That's
you
right.
didn't roll with the fellas. No, and I don't want any sister to have to roll with the fellas, but you have to
Hmm.
understand our psyche. But y'all do know it. You know words can hurt, so you sneak a little word in, a little jab. But if we can
Yep.
say instead of you sneaking a word in, sneak a scripture in.
Mm.
Sneak the
Mm.
thing that this man is motivated by. If this
Mm.
man is motivated by a touch snatch, right? My brother Jack Knight taught me about. If this man is motivated by Sadhguru, if this man is then use the words that is motivating this man. If he's motivated by Garvey, then quote Garvey, and the man will.
Mm.
If he's motivated by Elijah Muhammad, then quote the message to the black man, and that man will.
Mm.
Where the
Mm.
Mm.
motivation is, we said mind is the activator and sex is the motivator. So we are motivated to want to be with you as our wives, daughters, sisters, and mothers, and aunties and cousins. We want to be in your presence. And I don't just mean sexually, I just mean be in your presence and be around you. We want you to be pleased with us because we were taught to protect our mother,
Yes.
protect our sister. So
Mhm.
that's innately in us. But then when you betray that by quoting the Asili, as Marimba Annie speaks of, by
Mhm.
quoting the dominant society that we've been and we've come to recognize is against us, then we start to believe you're against us instead of recognizing that you are also being misprogrammed by the dominant culture in society to control us. So that's
Mm.
how we do it. We
Okay.
got to get back to the law of who we are as a people, the culture, the writings, the records, the proverbs of who we are as melanated people, and let those words come from our mouth. And then you can succeed the way Kahun Mantu said. It eliminates arguing. Because if I say to you, show me where what you just said is in our scripture, and I don't mean Bible, Quran only, whatever you call scripture, Medu Netir, show me this in the Medu Netir.
Mhm.
You follow?
Mm.
Show me in the message to the black man. Show me in how to eat to live. Show me in the need for a black Bible. Show me in from Babylon to Timbuktu. Show me in something that's not whitewashed where this argument we're having, what does it tell us to do? We do that, problem solved.
Mhm. Okay. Elder Owen, I know you spoke a lot of before about you used to do these affirmations and you write in your journal and all of these things. So what are some of the words, the encouraging words that you would want to hear, that you have heard, that boosts the black male or that has boosted you? What does that look like coming from the female? What does that sound like, I should
Well,
say?
I can speak from my wife perspective, or my mom,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or my mother-in-law, my sister. Nothing. It empowers me when I know they say, "I believe that you can do it. I know you can do it. I believe in
That's
you.
right.
I know you're going to do it for us." And sometimes that's all you need. If a man has a plan and he's about doing something noble that's bigger than himself. I don't care how challenging it may seem. And if he gets that affirmation from a black woman that he loves and respects and cherishes her opinion, and she says, "Go for it, you can do it, I'm with you," that man will leave there empowered to go and make that happen, make it a reality,
Right.
but definitely give it
Mhm.
all he has. And
Mhm.
once you give the effort, the result is what it is. The effort is
Mhm.
what's important. You
Mhm.
put forth the right effort, you're going to get some reward from it. It may, and even if you don't get what you intended, you're going to be better for it anyhow.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
words of power, words of a frequency and a vibration, words of a tone, words of weight. Because we have taught in our scripture that words can emote a certain reaction from you. Someone can say something to you, and you can feel it in your gut.
Mm.
It can make you nauseous. So words of affirmation of empowerment also have frequency, weight, resonance that causes the body to vibrate, and it makes you react in a certain way that can either be better for you or adverse to you.
Okay. So passing the ball, Calhoun, Uncle, Dr. Ennius, if you can, what is the number one thing, if you only had to choose one, the number one thing that a Nubian lady can do to push besides the words? What's the thing where you like, this is it. This will help us to help push him toward the next level, especially as he is being attacked by racism, white supremacy.
Loyalty, you know. If she can be, I'm being loyal to me only, but this idea of being loyal to what we set our goals to, being loyal to what we said we were going to do, being loyal to the commitment that we made when we were happy and everything was going okay and everything was fine,
Mm-hmm.
being loyal even when things aren't going fine, because we know we're going to have those moments when things aren't fine. So if you can maintain that loyalty even in the
Mm-hmm.
midst of the difficulties, that's motivating, because that's one less thing I have to worry about per se. I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
worry. I mean, you always, no one's perfect. People make mistakes, blah blah blah. But the point is, if you know you have a loyal person in your corner, then that motivates you to not have to look over your back. That motivates you to not have to wonder or not give them the benefit of the doubt.
Mm-hmm.
If I know you're loyal to what we have committed ourselves to, I can give you the benefit of the doubt. But if
Mm-hmm.
I'm uncertain of your loyalty to what we've committed ourselves to, now I got a question.
Right.
Now I'm wasting energy trying to figure out what really is going on as opposed to focusing on what we said we were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
the
Mm-hmm.
loyalty of what we committed ourselves to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I promise there's only a few questions left. We're going to talk about African Holocaust Month in a second before we wrap up. But I think we have to kind of address this as, a religion. A lot of people, we have to make the space. We have to make the space for the scriptures and make the space for the environment, the wife, the husband, the children to be treated a certain way, and the healthy, the words, the affirmations, all the things that you guys mentioned. But we always look for God to show up in our life, or the Most High to show up in our life. So how does the Most High, how does God show up for the Black male, Dr. Varma?
Well, when we talk about the Most High God or Adonai or Yahweh or Jehovah or Natru or Orisha or Ginwins or Shushuki or whatever, we got so many ways of defining. A black man must acknowledge that there is something greater than me and you. And this thing that's greater than you
Yes.
and me exists in you and me. Isn't that crazy? It's greater than both of us, yet exists in all of us.
Yes.
You
Mhm.
follow? But it's not confined
Mm.
within us.
Mhm.
Once we can accept that, you take the name,
Right.
you take what you want to call it, for us to navigate sometimes, because of what Arab supremacy or racism, Arab supremacy or racism, white supremacy and the likes, because of what they've done to us, they've now tricked us into believing that there is no creator, because why would a creator let this happen to you and me? No, we're saying there is a creator, but our creator is not the person or thing or place or entity or being that has allowed this, but our following other people's narratives and countercultures has counter our potential to that creator. So the position that the Most High has to hold in any true noble lady, regal lady, or any true black man has to be primal. I think our uncle just said it best, that I have to know that you and I are committed and dedicated and loyal to purpose. Purpose is determined by scripture or text or culture. Scripture or text or culture is designed by the divinity that we each say we aspire to worship or be in the bosom of. And said divinity must have the best interest of those who are calling on it. So we have to get away from other people's interpretation and other people's dogmas of what spirituality is by their white or Arab or Indo-Aryan or Indo-Oriental perspectives. And we as black people have to find our way back to who we are and let that thing be our compass. Let that creator, I'm talking about the most high heavenly one. I'm talking about the African Messiah, Yeshua. I'm talking about the African Moses, the Moses. I'm talking about the African Muhammad, Ahmad, Mahmud, and recognize that historical ramifications say that other cultures invaded these dogmas or doctrines which we held as sacred and usurped power and inserted themselves in it. And now we are blaming the original for the crimes of the facsimile. Put the crimes of the facsimile where it
That's right.
belongs, pick back up the pieces, and re-embrace our spirituality, as or as we say, try righteousness. But we got to redefine what righteousness is so we can get back to trying it and wake up the young people
Okay.
and the old people alike.
All right. Now that was your question. Everyone gets one more question, then we'll talk about African Holocaust Month again and we'll wrap up. So Dr. Tucker, we spoke about how the black woman can show up for the black man. And Dr. Varma spoke on how God shows up or the Most High shows up for the black man. So how does the black man show up for the black man? You know, a lot of times as females, girl, it's okay. Don't worry. Forget him. Keep it pushing, move on. Right. So we give ourselves these prep talks and everything like that. And I know it's a little more hardcore with you guys. So how does the black man show up for the black man and acknowledge the hurt, acknowledge the pain? Because we play down the pain and the suffering when it comes to the black male. He's okay, he's strong, he'll be all right. But that's not the case. And that leads to depression and leads to so many of the suicides we see and
Mm.
everything else that takes place. And we don't look at that. So how does the black man show up for the black man?
Well, we have to be our brother's keeper. We have to have brothers that we can call on, brothers we can
That's right.
depend on, brothers that we can share things with, brothers that we can go to when we need something.
That's right.
And if a brother comes to us, we have to be there for him.
That's right.
If he needs something, we have to provide it for him.
That's
You
that
know,
brotherhood.
we have to be there for each other. We have to depend on each other. We have to be responsible for each other. And we have to have similar goals or the same goals and push each other. You know, if my brother falls short, I have to be there for him.
Yes.
That has
Obligation.
to work both ways. Yes, we
Yes.
have to be obligated, same mission, same mindset, and we have to truly be each other's keeper.
Okay, now the same mission, the same mindset, the brother's keeper. This is taking place within within an environment, right? And right now we're talking about brotherhood, the black male. So if we're looking at the environment which this is taking place, and we're talking about the kanisa, the church, right? um and we're all within this environment, the female, the child, the black male. How is the black church also under attack? Because we need to create a safe place for you to even have these conversations, a safe place for you to be your brother's keeper or your sister's keeper, a safe place, for us to feel like we can utilize each other to, to our benefit. So when we look at the state of the black church, is the black church also under attack? Kahumantu, I'm sorry.
Just to what my brother just said a while ago, as the brotherhood, and when just finishing up for he said, and when you turn to your brother listen to what he says. Take it in. If it makes sense, roll with it. I'll just wrap that up. Right, is the black church under attack?
Mm-hmm.
A true black church will be under attack. I say a true black church because we've got those churches with black people inside of them, but they're still following the European, the Arabicized, the Judas or the Jebusite style of worshiping. So any true black church that is taking its Africanness, when they see us, will turn and go, they're different. And they'll look at us and want to attack us based on the fact that you're saying Africa, you're saying black, you're saying Yeshua, you're saying everything against what they're saying. We're saying the Moseses. We're not saying Moses. You know what I'm saying? We're saying Yeshua Christ. We're not saying Jesus Christ. We're saying Anere. Who's that? We're not saying God. We're not saying Allah. We're not saying. So they will want to look at you. Those that know and we realize, oh, they know something. But as my teacher, AJ Varma, Dr. AJ Varma, sometimes I'm wondering what to call him because I call him something different name. Right? Got to normalize our church. By normalizing the church means that we normalize ourselves. So we have to be doing things that the family, getting back to just touch on everything now, that the family is normal. The brotherhood is normal. Because they have brotherhoods too. The sisterhood is normal. They have sororities too, right? So we've got to normalize everything we do so that they will say, oh, they're just like us. So that they will not attack us. It's not wise to say, okay, we're black, attack us. That's silly. So we've got to make sure that we come in such a way that we're educating our children. We are educating our children. We're educating ourselves, our wives, our family, our friends, our nation, the whole lot. So we're making sure that we're educated in such a way that we know we have to be for and by each other. You know what I'm saying? When we turn to the scriptures, it tells you about blessed are the peacemakers. Why? Because they should be the children of the Most High Heavenly One. So we're not coming with a fashion of attack. We're just saying, hey, we're embracing the scriptures. As my brother said a while ago, once we utilize the scriptures, we'll be okay. So yes, the black churches will be under attack, but we've got to be in such a way that we're like a stealth sliding through.
Okay. With the demasculinization of the male, and the he, hers, and the him, she's, and the herms, and all of that stuff brung together, I want to be fair in saying that, it may be the environmental factor, it may be the hormonal imbalance, and maybe so many different things that we know can cause this shift. So how do we normalize the Nubian male, the tribal ruler in his true sense, while also not offending, but teaching and showing what it is and how it became what it is now with the demasculinization of the male? I don't know if that makes sense, Kahonanku.
So I just want to be clear about the question. You're asking, how do we normalize what manhood is in the midst of all of this?
We'll kind of speak a little bit to the demasculinization of the male, and then how do you take that without offending and also begin to normalize what we defined earlier in the show, what a tribal ruler or what a real male is.
So the demasculine, when you demasculinize a group of men, first and foremost, we have to be aware. We talked about it earlier. We as men cannot be validated by a society that wasn't built for us. So if all you're trying to do is be a male, then it's easy to be demasculinized. Right. If that's all you're trying to do, if all you're trying to do is meet the standards of a society that doesn't have standards, then it's easy for them to shift you, because all you're doing is following a pop culture. All you're doing is trying to keep people happy that don't have your best interests in the first place.
Mm.
So you're going to ultimately offend those who can't control you. We see it in individual relationships, you see it in societies. The moment the person in an individual relationship can't control you, now you're the bad person. The moment a society can't control a group of men who says these are our standards, we're not trying to hurt anybody, we're trying to do something that benefits us. If what that is not going to benefit the society that wants to control you spiritually so that they can take your resources and tell you that you're poor and get rich off of you and twist your whole idea of what manhood is, if you stand up against that, then yeah, you're going to offend. But that's the reality of being a man. It's
That's
Mm-hmm.
not
right.
that you're trying to offend.
Mm-hmm.
We have to do what it takes to protect our families, to protect our resources, to protect our scriptures, to be what is necessary for us to ultimately be that rule or standard, as our boss says, it just said, in the midst of demasculinization.
Mm-hmm.
Our children won't be able to see a man who isn't really a man and say that's not really a man unless we be men.
Right. That's true.
You know what I'm saying? So if,
Yeah.
if we're playing this game of everybody what live and let live,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not saying, okay, in the midst of living and letting live, I'm going to be a man by these standards.
Mm-hmm.
If my son walks up to me and he has a certain way about himself, I say, straighten up. We don't do that.
Mm-hmm. No
That's not
sugar.
what we do.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't matter what society is saying. That's not what we do. If you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna be here in this community and be judged amongst us, then this is how we operate.
Mm.
No different than the women would say to the young women. If they want to act out, we don't do that in this community. If we and that's how we grew up.
Mm-hmm.
This idea that the children are gonna run the house, that I didn't grow up like that. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't grow up.
Yes.
It didn't happen. This
No,
idea
sir.
that whatever, or if you keep seeing something in the news cycle, it's normal. I didn't grow up like that. My father would I know it now, I didn't know it then. He would intentionally put or allow certain things to be on the television so he
Mm-hmm.
could walk in at the appropriate time and say, if you ever do that, I'm gonna break your neck.
Mm. Yes. Yes. That's real.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the reality, the reality is that being you you don't want to go out and offend intentionally, because sometimes being a man is knowing who not to offend or how not to offend. That's the reality too. However, you can't please everybody.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. So
Oh.
we have to understand what's best for us. It's just no different than dealing with the immune system. The immune system doesn't care which pathogens it offends.
Mm-hmm. It
It
just
does
attacks.
its job. All right,
Mm-hmm.
you ain't supposed to be in here. Get out. You know what I'm saying? If your immune system is like, no, but it's a cute virus. The virus, we should really let the old bacteria. Oh man, you you don't have parent bacteria. You want to live here? If your immune system, you'll be sick. So we as men, we gotta be those cherubs at the gate. Like, who are you? Get away. We ain't supposed to come this way. Get up. That's that's
Mm-hmm.
that's a part of manhood. But
Mm-hmm.
the part of manhood is also understanding that you may have to question, you may have to assess, you may have to understand, judge what is coming in, and determine whether it meets our criteria.
Mm-hmm.
And if we do that, we can keep the craziness, this idea
Mm-hmm.
of being a man, but you're still a woman. We can keep that craziness out of our space.
Okay. I'm still in that example. I love that. That was nice. All right. So moving on, Elder Owen, I want if we can if you can briefly speak to the male ego, because when we speak about the Black church or any organization or anything that people join, a lot of times the leader is a male. It is now that ladies are begin to understand that they can also, take their rightful place. But if we're talking about the male, is it hard for men to listen to men or take instruction for other men or to be led by other men when it comes to the male ego? And if so, what causes that and how do you reverse that?
Well, it's interesting that you led with women finding their place. We just did a recent series talking about women being
Mm-hmm.
allowed to preach
Mm-hmm.
and have a voice within our communities and in our religious systems. But when it comes to ego, ego is maybe the number one cause of dissension in the Black community, and especially when it comes to following leaders and being able to take instruction. And men are very uh, get very defensive and aggressive when they think their women may be following another man because they feel like they could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if another male, for example, if a leader of a community is doing something that they think it's admirable, they tend to want to deify that individual to make them they're beyond, or well, they're superhuman, because it
Mm-hmm.
takes away the accountability.
Mm-hmm.
You see, it's easy to cast it up to spookism because you don't want to be held to the highest standard. You don't want to make the effort to try to raise yourself up. But when you set aside ego, now you've allowed growth and transformation to occur. Because transformation and growth cannot occur where ego resides.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it means now that our leaders have to be at a certain standard. Our leaders have to prove themselves to be not just individuals that can express the teaching or the word or the life, they have to live it.
Mm-hmm.
In our conscious communities, we have too many people that are saying it, but not living it. They don't do it every day. They don't, if you go and you grade their life by what they say, it's not happening. But when you find a leader, and we're so blessed to have one in our midst that is leading and revising the atonism way of life, he lives the life. He's not
Mhm.
asking us to do anything that he is not prepared to do.
Right.
See, when a leader
Good.
asks you to do something and they don't do it, then you got to
That's
be
the problem.
careful. But when
Mm-hmm.
a leader says, do this, and they do it,
Mm-hmm.
they say push through because they have proven and given the example of them pushing through. If they say we're going to do Sila 3 times, they're doing Sila 3 times a day. If we're going to fast for 30 days during the fasting days of atonement, that leader is doing it from the front of the room, right? So,
Yes.
so we're talking about ego. When you see someone willing to go through it, and they're not superhuman, they have good days and bad days, but they're pushing through and doing the best they can. You put your ego aside to be taught, to be instructed, so that you too can raise and elevate yourself to where others can now look to you and be as an
Mm-hmm.
example, like Dr. Tucker said earlier, because we are
Mm-hmm.
called to be an example so that we can help to liberate our people. It's all about
Okay.
liberation. Are you and I doing what is necessary to bring liberation to our people on all fronts of people activity?
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you all. This has been a hard crew, but it ends up turning out pretty well. We do have an event tomorrow that's happening. I've heard of African Holocaust Month,
Yay!
which also began last Saturday, if I'm correct. So if everyone can briefly, what speak to African Holocaust Month, and you literally have like 30 seconds to tell people either the importance of it, why they should come, where to get the tickets. If everybody can just play off each other and bring it home, we'll start with Dr. Tucker and work our way around.
African Holocaust Month is important for us because we don't want to ever forget what we have gone through. And we want to bring that, keep that in the minds of the people so we can continue to be motivated, so we can continue in the fight for liberation.
Okay. All right. Kahumantu, please.
Continuing there, we've started from last week. Last week we had what event was last
Medical
week was
apartheid.
medical apartheid that still exists. This Saturday we've got breaking the chains of miseducation and false indoctrination. Got Dr. Ineas. We've got Reverend Philip Shock Matthews. We've got Diana Powell, the wife, and Elder Owen Burrows, who's here as well. Don't miss it. If you want to really get a feel of what African Holocaust Month is, come to all four.
Okay. All right. And Kahun Uncle?
I'm going to steal something that Abba Sesh recently said. We need this African Holocaust Month because we have been losing for so long that we think that losing is winning. And so this month is going to define for us what is losing and what is winning. What is it that's going to allow for us to now be the producer instead of the consumer? What is it that's going to allow us to be the namer as opposed to being the named? What is it that is going to allow us to control our destiny as opposed to being controlled? All of these things, it takes longer than a month, obviously, but this month should highlight these things so that we learn what winning is again.
Okay. Dr. Varma?
International African Holocaust Month, where we tell people go to www.journeyhomegroup.com, click on the advertisement link there, takes you straight to Eventbrite. It's just $7 to participate. It starts at 2 p.m. We turn at about 1:30 in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time. For those of you in the UK, that'll be about 6:30 p.m. And at the top of that hour, which will be 7 p.m. in the UK and 2 p.m. in East Coast, and then just, of course, Central onto Pacific. You tune in and you'll see, and also Brother Kerwin Phillip will be on the panel as well. You get to see them take questions as panelists as to the state of the education for Black people, and how we can, as Dr. Tucker said, know about this Holocaust, but what do we do? What's the marching orders? What do we do? Right? Because sometimes we get tired, and that's a sign of being broken. As I said, we get broken every day. But how do we push through the I'm tired? I say I'm tired at least 5, 10 times a day. But how do we push through it? What's the real thing? How do we come together? How we maintain this brotherhood and this sisterhood? Make consciousness relevant, make consciousness sexy, make spirituality right again, make righteousness right again. How do we do that? International African Holocaust Month is a definite way for everyone to get a start if they don't know what to do.
Okay, thank you. Man, I thought you were going to keep going. I wanted to say, I want to stick a pin in it. I've been waiting to say that and take that from Kahun Mansu, but it's okay. He stopped me earlier. I just wanted to get that out. All right, go ahead, Elder Owen, please.
October is African Holocaust Month. This is the most important event happening in the conscious community. Every people that have suffered on the face of the earth constantly reminds the world what happened to them because they don't want it to ever be repeated. We have a Holocaust. The worst Holocaust that have happened to any people has happened to us. And it continues. It's not over. We are at war with a race of people that want to eliminate us off the face of the earth or forever oppress us. We cannot allow that to happen. We must bring attention to what happened to us so that we can understand what to do now and we can understand what to do in the future. So African Holocaust Month is for all of us. It's a conversation that we all need to be a part of, and it's something we need to gravitate to instead of pushing away from. Get everyone you know to join us. Go to journeyhomegroup.com. We have a wall of remembrance where we honor and memorialize those who have died, suffered, and transitioned under this oppressive system of racism, white supremacy, which exists today. We want you to put your names of the loved ones that have transitioned on that wall so that they can be memorialized. We want you to join us and be a part of this interesting and very poignant discussion that's happening in African Holocaust Month.
Okay, thank you all for coming
Thank
on. We
you.
truly appreciate it here at the Vantage Point.
Thank
We
you so
took
much
a
for
lot
having us.
away from,
Thank you.
no problem, from what you said. It was a lot to take away from it. So I'm just encouraging, just echoing what everyone said, to join the event tomorrow and for the rest of the month, and just see what African Holocaust Month is truly about. And, today we kind of spoke to just the Nubian male. We did the ladies last week. This week we did the males. And it's very important that we look at not just the attack that takes place on the outside, but the attack that also takes place within the home, within, our environment, so that we can all be a part of the liberation that needs to take place, and all be a part of the healing, all be a part of the process. So with that, we will see you next week on the Vantage Point. We thank all the listeners for tuning in. As we say always, love is love. Peace.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Peace.